So, Joe, it's been such a pleasure collaborating with you on Sweet Tooth. And this has been a very long road for both of us.
It's because we have a lot of sweets to eat, right?
How did this all begin? Because when I remember when you contacted me somewhere in the middle of the pandemic, you asked for a 3-minute barn burner.
Right.
And here we have a 12-minute, 3-movement piece about sweets.
Well, we found out that we have a lot of sweets that we enjoy that are in common. I distinctly remember taking walks. We would take walks outside during the pandemic, my wife and
Daily
I.
walks, yeah.
I'm sure you've taken many walks, and I enjoy talking on the phone while I walk, and those were some wonderful conversations that we had about music, about various types of music. I was really interested at that point, and I still am actually, of curating short pieces or pieces that can be programmed in a variety of different ways. And I thought this would be really fun to work on something like this with you. And then we started talking about, I don't remember, I might have had like key lime pie or something, one of my favorite sweets.
We ended up talking a lot about food. I know that. You would tell me about what you and Janet had for dinner.
Right.
And then dessert would usually be thrown in too. And that's when I began to realize maybe what I was looking for a topic was sweets. I always love collaborating closely with the commissioners to find out something that's important to you and then that resonates with me. And as soon as we started talking about dessert, sweet, I think we both got excited.
We both got excited. And at least I was walking, so I didn't gain any weight when I was doing that.
I was walking every day too, but I think we would talk a lot at night, and you would be walking at night.
Yeah.
Which maybe that was too, thinking of desserts the end of the day.
Right, exactly. And what I think a really wonderful approach to composition, in that to sort of have that pictorial, or shall we say, the taste in our mouth of what the music should possibly sound like.
Well, that played into how I composed the piece. So once I decided that the first movement would be key lime pie, I had to do research.
Right, yeah.
I don't know how much intensive research I could handle without gaining too much weight, but I did try key lime pie several times. I would get different pieces of pies from different locations. I would take a bite and I would write down some thoughts and then take another bite. So I was really trying to get analytical about what I was experiencing as I was eating it. And that happened again with salted caramel gelato. And then finally with the chocolate lava cake.
Those three desserts were the top three of, I think, my wife Janet's and mine and yours. I don't know how we came to that, but we all like those a lot. I know my wife likes a lot of chocolate. I'm a big key lime pie lover. And the salted caramel gelato I was first introduced to that on a trip to Italy that I took, and I just absolutely fell in love with that.
Well, I love too that they are all so different. So the key lime pie, what attracted me to that, especially as a starting movement, is that I can lay this kind of groove that starts off the whole thing at this nice moderate tempo, and we have the tartness of the middle layer with the crunchiness of the bottom, the graham cracker layer, and then the sweet whipped cream on top. I was trying to think about how you scoop up a bite. You can have just the whipped cream or whipped cream with the tartness or whipped cream, tartness, and the graham cracker. But how do you experience it when you have key lime pie? What do you think about?
Well, first, I'm gluten-free. Okay, so I have to have the gluten-free crust. But for me, I like the middle there.
So like a stiff inner layer.
Yeah, because then I can really kind of massage the insides of my taste buds with it, I guess. I don't know.
So thinking about salted caramel gelato, that what attracted me to it is how creamy and smooth that caramel taste is, but then you have that unexpected burst of saltiness.
Exactly.
And we don't know when it's going to happen if the salt grains are small enough.
I agree with you completely. And again, I like the texture.
And for me, I felt like this is a single experience. It wasn't like with the key lime pie where I could divide up what I want to scoop up with my fork in each bite. So for here, the music was more of one type of music, whereas with key lime pie, I had 3 different motives running around depending on the graham cracker, the tart middle section, and the whipped cream. With salted caramel gelato, it's just a smooth rolling undulation, but then there's a point at which you get a lot of this in your mouth.
Right.
And then that's when the saxophone is rolling through these long sequences.
I love music with great harmony and great melody. And the harmony on all 3 of these pieces, I think is very depictive of the music. But the second movement, the harmony is changing and changing and changing all the time. And I think you get that changing flavor when you take different bites of salted caramel gelato.
One thing we did realize with that movement as our collaboration process went on is that by removing some of the material from the movement, it allowed you greater and greater freedom to stretch the material that's there.
Right. We started with a much longer piece, didn't we?
Yes.
And I think that was my fault because I kept saying, well, why don't you try putting this in? I always like to add a little more technique.
We tried.
And brevity is the best, I think.
Because especially once we made the final cuts to that second movement, it was amazing to see the duration that you ended up with was exactly the same, but by taking out 30 seconds of material, that allowed you 30 seconds to stretch and play with what you had.
Right.
And that was just brilliant.
Right. And then the third movement is the tour de force.
What I was going for with chocolate lava cake is you've got that milk chocolate exterior and with a little bit of powdered sugar on top. That doesn't actually do anything for me taste-wise, but it looks nice. But then when you reach the middle of the lava cake and all the molten lava comes out.
And it's warm.
Yes. So the piece starts off quite quickly, that movement, but then there's a different material that happens in the middle. And then after that, you're getting into a big sugar rush because you've eaten all the middle of the molten lava. So that's where I feel like the end is just like, you're just shooting as fast as you can to get to the end of the piece.
If I had as many hours eating chocolate lava cake as I had practicing it, boy, I would be a few sizes bigger than I am now. But
So I've never collaborated with somebody to this degree where I can't even tell you how many versions we went through, but I think this is the essence of a true collaboration.
it is. It's probably my favorite part of working with composers is working with someone like you who is willing to sit down and experiment with various ideas, links of the composition or sections. And for me, I learned so very much from it. It's one of the unique aspects of music making that is not very often talked about in school, where you get to collaborate and you just sit back as the active learner. And for me, that's the joy of not just making music, but of being a musician and growing as a musician. So I want to thank you very much for such a terrific work. Very proud of this work and everything I've collaborated with you on, of course. I think it will have, what we say, legs, or lots of tastings.
Yes, lots of tasting. Actually, that reminds me, how might you incorporate, or have you thought about incorporating food, actual desserts, into the performance?
Yeah. Well, I almost pulled that off at the premiere, but the logistics of it, of bringing 3 desserts that would stay in the state that they should stay in for eating, such as not having melted gelato, that was a challenge, and still to play a full concert.
Right.
So this is to be definitely realized in the future.
But this also raises another question, which is, does Sweet Tooth need to always be performed with all 3 movements? Or might you envision playing individual movements perhaps as encores?
Well, I would defer that to you, first of all, because it's your composition. But I think you and I have talked about that.
Yeah.
And having just separate movements stand alone in a performance are fine, as long as they're presented, I would say, within the proper context of the entire musical event. Mm-hmm. The original intent was a 3-minute barn burner, wasn't it?
It was.
And 2 of these movements are basically that,
Right.
3.5, 4-minute barn burners. And particularly the third movement, I think, would work very well as an encore piece.
Yes.
The second movement could as well, I think, too, just depending on how you program the rest of the concerts. Maybe have the audience just sort of relax into the end of the concert, kind of a nightcap.
Yes.
Per se.
I'd be thrilled however people decide to program it. All 3 movements or individual movements on the program, or even as an encore. I would just ask if people decide to do all 3 movements to keep it in the sequence that it is.
Of course.
Because I think it makes the most sense the way that each
Right.
ending is set up for the next movement.
Kind of alongside of that, it's the exact way that I thought of the desserts, first, second, and third.
Yes.
For me.
Well, Joe, it's been such a pleasure working on Sweet Tooth with you. Thank you for all the hours and all the phone calls and all the trips to work together so we could find the exact right version of Sweet Tooth that we are both happy with. And I'm so thrilled that we did this project together, and now we're going to be sharing it with the world.
Well, thank you, and I am equally, if not more so, thrilled too, and I hope it will not be the last. I look forward to many more with you, and I just truly hope that saxophonists around the world will indulge in this really beautiful piece and perform it a lot. And I had such a great time working with you, and thank you.
Thank you.